In my speech, I will talk about a specific case that has to do with the Italian Holocaust, and in particular we'll talk about the provincial concentration camps for Jews set up by the Italian Social Republic. And I will link up with the previous presentation, and namely I will talk about one of the steps in the pathway described by the previous speaker. And I will also try to define the deported, so what was deported, regardless of the final destination. I think that it is very important to find a definition of deported person, because regardless of the destination, that identifies the victims of this system. And so that's the starting point for any kind of further identity evolution. So that's why, in my opinion, even though this is a sort of partial vision of something very much more complex, it is the Holocaust in Italy at least, this case can tell us something about some procedures and mechanisms, also from a sort of administrative point of view, that then led to the collaboration of many Italians to the extermination of the Jews. So I'm going to talk about the provincial concentration camps that started from a specific point in time. We have already talked about fascist camps in the previous days, especially for Jews, so Costantino di Sante and other speakers like Campo, so I mentioned that. So I will deal with these provincial camps that have a specific starting point. It is Police Order number 5 on November the 30th, 1943. So we are after September the 8th. So we are sort of in the middle of the German occupation of Italy, so in the middle of the Italian Social Republic. And you see here the text of this deed that was signed by the Minister of Internal Affairs of the Italian Social Republic and by the head of police. And what does this document say? That all Jews, even though in the past they had been excluded by racial rules and laws, well, now, from now on, regardless of their sort of specificities, they have to be stopped, arrested, and sent to concentration camps. And at the same time, all of their possessions and belongings are going to be sort of seized and given to the deprived Italian population that was in a bad situation because of the bombing, or the war bombing. So Jews are then taken to provincial camps before being sent to larger camps at national level that were specifically equipped for that. So from my point of view, this document marks the beginning of a new persecution project with respect to the previous phase of the fascist regime, because, well, before that there was still a strict regulation, but there had been many distinctions that aimed mostly at the isolation, marginalization and segregation of a specific category of society. Well, from now on we have a specific rule and order, not directly made at a exterminated, but at least at getting rid of Jews inside Italians, within Italian society and Italy at large. So this phasing out needs to be firstly made through depriving these people from their economic resources, because Well, up to that point, Jews could have limited economic resources, but from now on, all of their belongings are going to be seized in order to sort of redistribute that to the Italians that had undergone major damage because of the war. So there is this kind of attitude, and also there is a sort of elimination from society that does not equal extermination, does not equal killing, but everybody has to go. And so the aim is to gather all of these people and to enclose them within a closed space like concentration camps. So concentration camp is well defined as kind of facility, and in particular is well defined by this order that sets forth that these provincial concentration camps have to be set up. So this project is going to rely within a network of camps aimed at fulfilling this purpose of gathering all the Jews. So this project is going to be fulfilled only partially, but still it is partially fulfilled. So all over the Italian territory of central Italy and northern Italy that corresponds to the part of Italy that was occupied by the Germans, well, these concentration camps are set up, and I want to be really clear on that. So we are talking about concentration camps that are sort of strongly wanted, and they are set up and operated and managed by Italian authorities. And then, of course, there's a wide debate about sort of this kind of decisions, and understand if maybe this kind of decision was pushed by the Germans, but according to the documentation that is available, well, these are Italian camps, provincial Italian camps, that were set up by the Italian Social Republic authorities and then managed by the Italian police. And if we have a look at their functioning, we see that, well, when it comes to their responsibilities, well, their responsibilities are to be linked up with Italian responsibilities. And going back about our session, this phenomenon of provincial camps is certainly limited to a specific geographical area, because we are talking about central and northern Italy that is under the rule of the Italian Social Republic and that is also occupied by the Germans. But also this links up with a specific point in time. So there's a specific chronology to be considered, because certainly we know when these provincial camps were set up, after the issuing of this order, this police order, and well, there were rulings and orders mostly issued by the police, but also set up some specific details about their functioning. And so we have at least another 3-4 deeds of this kind that somehow give clarifications about the specific operating measures to be applied to manage these facilities. And so there is a starting date, it is December 43, and so as to a sort of possible ending or closing date, well, if we were to find a date, well, in that case this is more difficult, because there are various situations. We have sort of more long-lasting camps that will remain in place until the summer of 44. Well, and considering that those camps were just sort of collecting points, well, we should think that this is a quite long period. Others, on the contrary, are just operated a few weeks or few months, just the time needed to gather people there for a few weeks. Those that had been rounded up in the province, and then they are taken somewhere else. So what I really want to underscore here is that these geographical, chronological aspect is very important. So these are specificities that have to be considered. Maybe this is rather self-evident, but it's important to sort of specify it, because of course we should not forget that the Germans are occupying Italy at that time, so sometimes different decisions are taken according to the evolution of events, or maybe so there was a certain situation, a specific area. So again, there could then be slight differences, but again, generally speaking, well, also the war front tends to go up from the south to the north, so northwards, because Italy is little by little liberated from the south, and that also has an impact on the evolution of events. And then each province then, because of this, has its own history, and again, this is a rather widespread sort of trend. So the Italian Social Republic is considered as a patchwork of different situations. It's almost impossible to find just one-size-fits-all interpretation to sort of explain what happened during those 2 years of the Italian Social Republic. And again, this is important to be considered this when considering also the reaction and the implementations of such orders, because this is important to see if then these camps are then really sort of set up. Because what happens after the issuing of this order? Well, in some areas of the Italian Social Republic, like large cities, well, the camps are not set up from scratch, where mostly people tend to use the local prisons as gathering points for the Jews. In other places, well, brand new places seem to be set up, but then there are no facilities, so there are obstacles to be overcome, and not always it is possible to overcome such obstacles. And sometimes there were really practicalities difficult to overcome. And then there are other places, roughly 20 more or less. It also depends how you interpret then the documents and the sources that can be found. I mean, sometimes there are bigger problems in some areas. So if we also consider the definition, I mean, sometimes there were places that are called differently by official documents. I've tried to stick as much as possible to what I found inside communications exchanged by people belonging to the administration of the Italian Social Republic, so people from the police offices and the Ministry of Internal Affairs. So I tried to sort of see what they were writing to each other, and I tried also to use the definition used by the Salon authorities. So again, of course, there were other places that could have been considered as places used for the same function, to fulfill the same purpose. But let's see where these camps were set up. So were set up in 20-25 provinces of the central and northern Italian Social Republic territory, either inside facilities that previously had already been used as concentration camps, not only for the Jews but also for prisoners in general, and I'm sure you already mentioned this. So, and then, of course, brand new facilities were set up. So facilities that were set up from scratch and that did not exist before. So that were used specifically to gather there all the Jews. So, oh my gosh, I just 5 minutes left. So I want to show you a map. This is a map taken from the website of Michele Sarfatti, one of the most knowledgeable experts when it comes to these topics. And so you see here also another sort of map that is taken from an important publication issued in France some year ago about the situation in Italy at the time. So you see dots and little stars differentiating these camps from prisons. But this is just to give an idea of the level of dissemination and presence over the Italian territory of such facilities. So very quickly, well, I'm sorry because I wanted to tell you so much more, but again, I told you that this is a new element, a new persecution project that is implemented specifically by the Italian Social Republic. But another thing to be considered, and that has to do with many other topics, is that there is a strong continuity with the past, because the Italian Social Republic doesn't come up with new laws or rules to tell local police heads to set up concentration camps. Not at all. Actually, the very same regulation that has been sent out in 1940 is a sort of cut and paste. And again, this is exactly to adapt some specific facilities to be turned into concentration camps. So maybe in the past they had been used as internment camps. So people simply have to go back to something that has already been made in the past, and so there is a sort of strong continuity in this sense when it comes to the operating of these facilities. And even the internal regulations that are adopted refer specifically to what had been said before. So, I mean, such a decision actually sometimes doesn't imply no decision, so simply people go back to facilities already used in the past. So places that need to be isolated, they need to have a telephone landline, and then bit of electricity wiring, and so with open spaces where the internees could walk along. And again, so this whole system of provincial camps is made using also private buildings and villas, hospitals, cloisters, schools, so also public buildings, but not only. And I think it is very important to be considered if we analyze the relation then between these places and the civil society, because these places sometimes do not have the typical mainstream image of a camp, like this is the case of Fossoli here, but again, so very often these places had previous use, so they were part of the lifescape of the civil society. And for instance, this is one example. This is the coast of Liguria. The coast of Liguria is Potorno. Again, that building is used to set up such a camp. And well, I think that some years ago it was converted into a luxury hotel because it's in a very beautiful location. This is a sort of B-shop building, and again, this is a sort of seminary building of the sort of religious authorities. Again, so in this case, the Catholic Church was expropriated of this facility. And some years ago, I went back to Asti and I was there accidentally in that building for a book presentation, and a part of those of that building had been then used to welcome also a group of asylum seeker or migrants some years ago. And again, this is another religious facility. You see that also in terms of image. Well, such a place does not sort of recall at all the traditional camp that we have all in our minds. And also, this is the Villa Landini at Vovecchio in Padua. This is one of the sort of most long-lasting provincial concentration camps ever created, and that was used until July 44. And this example clearly show the kind of practice that was very, very sort of important when it comes to the Italian Shoah. So again, from December on, Jews were arrested by Italian authorities and then were taken to these places, and then from January, February onwards, the goal was to take them there, let them there, and then take them to Fossoli, where the only national camp was set up. It was supposed to sort of take them all together. Then from January 44 things changed, because from that date on, so the Germans keep insisting in order to sort of arrest also the Jews that had been excluded somehow by the regulations, so the sick ones, the oldest ones, and at one point they also start managing one part of the Fossoli camp. So again, there is a change, there is a shift at one point, but actually there are many people who think to be compliant with the Italian law, but again, actually they're following an order, well, of the social Italian Republic, not of the Italian state. And well, that is why I decided to talk about a sort of a shadowy area of the Holocaust because for these camps. Because if you have a look at official documents, well, there was never the declared intention of arresting and collecting these Jews to give them to the German authorities, but de facto they are involved in a mechanism that is strictly related to the war situation, and so we clearly know what's going to happen to the people ending up in these camps. So I have to stop. I'm going here. Thank you very much indeed.